business founded Wasatch Back Media. You can check it out, wasatchbackmedia.com. It's a digital marketing strategy and consulting firm. We do business and brand strategy, and then we activate your brand through digital strategies. We work with clients, large global clients, all the way down to nonprofits and small startup businesses. And Kasey is a good friend of mine and also my financial advisor, coach. And so I'm really excited to introduce her tonight, and I think you'll get a lot out of her presentation.
Thank you, Carly. Hello, everybody. Thanks for hi.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Oh, do you need to step in real quick?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Joanna here. I'm here to introduce Kasey because you deserve an introduction. Okay. So we are very honored and fortunate to have Kasey Ring here, who's the founder and president of Upward Financial Planning. And she has a lot of experience that she can share with us. She created this company based on the need that she found in her experience in the financial realm. And while she's worked with many high net worth individuals, many of which who have banks seeking their business or several financial advisors just for these individuals, she really felt like the people who needed financial planning weren't getting the help they needed. So she created this company. She has found that women really have unique financial needs in terms of managing their money and creating wealth. And whether you're starting over or you're continuing to manage your money and you're already on your way, she's here to help. She has a flat fee business model, flexible business hours, and she's here to help share some of her tips and tools for how to maximally manage your money and common practices to really maximize our wealth. So thank you so much, Kasey.
Thank you. So hi, I'm Kasey. As was mentioned, I founded Upward Personal Finance back in 2015 to help those who weren't getting help. I found in my years as a financial advisor and private banker that everybody in that space is clamoring for the people who have big portfolios to manage and a lot of money. And I wanted to start something that was sustainable and thriving for myself as a mom to help people like me, really, essentially. So I want this to be really interactive. I know we're going to be managing the chat, and feel free to ask questions along the way. I really want to have some time at the end to address your specific questions. And I designed this presentation to really talk about some very specific tools. You might want to say spreadsheets, pieces of paper, a file. They're actually really physical objects and tools that we as moms can use to really not only help us to take money out of the stressful realm, but to turn it into thriving. And that's really what my goal is for my clients and for you today. So with that, parenting is our most important job. Once we become a mom, that's it. That's our most important job in life. And with that, as women, as moms, we have some unique challenges when it comes to our money and managing being a mom, managing ourselves as individuals, managing the family and our jobs. We have a lot of hats that we wear, and oftentimes money can be a stress point for us. That what I want to talk about today is how to take money out of that stress equation. We already have a lot of things that are on us. We're managing our children, ourselves, our family. So let's take that piece out of the stressors, right? And just like I said, we have a lot of responsibilities tugging at us. And so if we can put some systems in place and processes in place that are easy to manage, it really helps us to be the people who juggle all the hats, right? So I'm going to jump right on into this. So again, any questions, let me know. But the number one tool, the first step, so these are in prioritized order for you as well, is a net worth statement. Curious if anyone in the Zoom call has one. I have found that when I work with my clients, this is kind of like, well, why would I need that? I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not, of high net worth. Why would I need to have that? Well, everybody I feel should take the time to have one and do one, because it's a very quick, easy visual one pager that tells you exactly where you stand financially today. It's not a tool that I use more than once a year now that I have it set up. And that's what I encourage my clients to do, is to start with this project. And there's plenty of free net worth statement tools online if you Google it. I think I got my first one just off of Microsoft template or something like that. So there's plenty of free things if you Google it, net worth statement. And what you do is you just sit down and collect essentially everything you own, which is your assets, versus everything you owe, which can be called either liabilities or your debt, right? And so when you subtract what you owe and your liabilities from what you own, that's what dictates what your net worth is, right? So numbers don't lie. That's the nice thing about numbers. They never lie. They always tell the truth. That's why I kind of like them. But this whole part, as you put in your assets and you take the time to list out all your liabilities, this whole process is getting you closer financially to your financial world. And it also is a great tool to show you, hey, I can grow some assets over here and I can comb down some liabilities or debts here. And when I do those two things, my net worth grows. And that is the very, very basic element of a financial plan. How do I grow my assets? How do I comb down my liabilities? That's it. So if you can come up with one or two things after doing this exercise, make that your very simplified financial plan. So again, grow your assets, decrease your liabilities. And then one thing I recommend to all my clients, and I do myself, is I set for myself an annual review. So at the end of the year, I will go in and I will update my net worth statement, and I will update all the assets, how much I have in my bank account, how much I have in my retirement accounts, what's my home worth, what's my car worth. I'll update all of that, and then I'll update all my liabilities. Have I combed down this debt? Have I paid down this credit card? Have I paid off the car loan? All of those things. And then inevitably, when you do those things, guess what? Your net worth grows. And that's something that you can celebrate annually as well. And when you know your numbers and you know exactly where your financial life stands, it's very easy to then move forward and grow it and celebrate it and then set future goals. So I just do this once a year and set my annual goals. So it's not a real labor intensive tool as soon as you have it set up. The first step is always the most challenging, right? So any questions on the net worth coming through before we move on to the next tool?
I have a question, just in terms of, I mean, once you've been doing this for several years, do you find that it's helpful to compare your net worth year to year and then get a baseline of like, okay, I'm expecting an 8% change, like that's my goal. And then you start to know kind of what your behaviors are, but is that realistic?
Absolutely. I personally don't put a growth number to it.
Okay.
It's kind of like a fun surprise, right? what I do though, is I put action items to it,
Mhm.
like, and specific numbers to both categories,
Mhm.
right? Like I want to add X to my retirement account.
Mhm.
I want to add, a brokerage account. I want to buy a rental property or a home. I'll make those specific type of action oriented goals. And then it's always kind of icing on the cake at the end to see, well, where did that land me, right? So for myself, last year was 16%, blew my mind. Like I had no idea that I was doing that well. And you don't know, and that's the whole point of this exercise is you don't know until you measure it, until you put it down, right? You have no idea. So I think it's a great tool for not only, again, showing you in one snapshot your visual life easily right there, but it's also a great tool for planning and celebrating your successes. Because you have it, you're going to perform better just by having it. I promise you. So, okay, so that's tool number one is the net worth statement. And realistically, I don't think it takes myself or my clients more than a couple hours to get this project done, really. But it's one that looms over us if we know about it, but most people just don't even know about it. Like, why would I need that? So this is where I start with all my clients. I think it's an excellent tool. So Google net worth statement and start working on one. So number two, this is the one that most of us get hung up on, our spending plan. Some people call it a budget. I don't like that word because to me it connotates like not having or holding back or dieting or like being really hard and stringent on yourself. A spending plan to me connotates something that's more proactive and more, I guess, liberating or positive. So, but it is a budget. What we're talking about here is making sure that you are managing well everything that's coming in and everything that's going out, right? So that at the end of the month, I want myself and all my clients to have it at zero. Like, and that what that means to me is that you have put every single penny to work and put it to work in a way that's going to help you, right? That's the trick. So in getting started with a monthly spending plan, obviously you determine your average monthly income. Super, super easy to do if you're a W-2 employee and you know how much income you pull in every month. But for those of us who either have flexible jobs, or we own our own business, or, we earn commissions and sometimes they're higher and sometimes they're lower. This part can be a little bit tricky. So if you're in that realm where your monthly income isn't always consistent, I really recommend that you go back the last 12 months of your income, look at it, collect it, and divide it by 12. It's a starting point. It doesn't have to be 100% accurate every month, but it's a starting point for which you can develop the rest of your plan. So the rest of your plan, the expense part is the challenge for most of us, right? What I hear from my clients is, I know I'm doing okay. I know I could be doing better. And at the end of the month, sometimes I just don't even know where it goes. So this spending plan is you stepping into the driver's seat and being the ruler of your money, right? Now, this whole tool right here puts you where your money works for you rather than you working for your money, okay? So this expenses part, I like to suggest that everybody group them into 3 different categories. And I purposely put savings as the first category, because this is where we get hung up, where we say, well, there's not any money left at the end of the month to put into savings. So let's flip that and let's start working on putting our savings away first and then working with the rest of the money the rest of the month. My goal for everybody, myself included, is to somehow get to where 20% of my income is going towards either short-term or long-term savings plan. It's a goal, right? When we're starting out and we're starting a family, that's very tough to do. But if you keep it in the front of your mind that that's your goal, that's your incentive, even if you do 5%, guess what you're doing? You're getting ahead. So that I start with savings because I want everybody to put that in the forefront of your mind, to pay yourself first, right? That's how we generate wealth. That's how we keep out of emergency situations. That's how things don't wind up on the credit card, is by putting that savings plan together. So the 3 categories are savings, mandatory expenses, and discretionary expenses. So when you're doing your budget, try to do it into those 3 categories. There is a guideline out there, and I say guideline, some people say rule, I don't like that word. It's a guideline, it's something to be mindful of, right? And it's called the 50-30-20 budgeting rule. And what that states is that 50% of your income should be spent on mandatory living expenses. That's your mortgage, your rent, your car payment, your utilities, your food, your clothing. I mean, things that you need to survive and thrive, right? The 30% is your discretionary income, or your discretionary expenses, sorry. That no more than 30% of your income should go towards discretionary. And that's the flavor of life, the spice of life. I want to go and have some entertainment. I want to go out to eat with friends. I want to, buy a new outfit, whatever it may be. But the 30% is, again, a guideline, but the 20 is what we're really trying to hit with all of this, is how do we hit the 20% savings mark for both short and long-term savings? And I'll go into that, I think, in the next slide. So what I say here at the bottom is I want you to make sure that you net out as close as 0 as possible, because I want you putting every penny to a job, right? And this takes time to go through your bank statements, your credit card statements, and really analyze how you're spending your money. How much is going to groceries? How much is going to gas and electric? How much is going to all of these things, so that you can build this out? This is by far the most challenging tool because it does need regular management. What I suggest is that we don't get overburdened with it and stressed about it every day, and that maybe you just set one time a week with yourself, with your spouse, with your family, to say, okay, how did I do this week? And input all your numbers and track them. That's where this comes alive and it becomes useful, is when you're actually tracking your numbers. It's also something that is always very flexible, right? You might start making more money at work, or you might have another mandatory expense that comes up. You need to be able to manage this in fluidity, in real time, right? So this is the tool that is somewhat, you need to manage it, or it manages you and then you feel out of control. So yeah, go ahead.
What do you feel, or how do you feel about apps and software like Mint that kind of allows you to connect bank account, credit cards?
I think it's great if that, what I say with all my clients, you find the system that works for you. I'm not going to dictate to you how the system should work. There are plenty of apps out there. There's free apps. There's apps that charge money. I myself use a good old fashioned, really ugly Excel spreadsheet. Like, it's just really what you feel comfortable with and what you like to do. But I encourage you to try some of those for sure. I've heard from clients that sometimes they're a little clunky, and then they get frustrated with the software not working. So I say, dial it back to caveman times and make it easier on yourself. I also carry like a little notebook in my purse to jot down when I make credit card charges. Like, I'm more old school, but it works. I don't have to stress about it. I don't have to worry about it. But it takes time to explore the options that are out there and see what works best for you, right? There are plenty out there. There's Mint, there's You Need a Budget. There's some free apps and tools too. If you Google best free budget tracker, you'll get a good list of all of those. And I always say, start out with the free option before jumping into paying for something, and see how it works for you and get to know it a little bit better.
I will say that also, I was just doing this today. If you go to your credit cards and go to your credit card statements, you can pull like a year-to-date or monthly report.
Yeah.
So, because I've tried to, again, like you said, everyone is different. The weekly is tracking is hard for me.
Yeah,
I have
it
so
is.
much going on, but I've noticed that like if I can go and I have a monthly explanation report of what I've spent for an entire month, because I basically use my credit card
Yeah.
and it breaks it down into certain categories. And then I can compare year to year, month over month. And then I know what's coming in. So the addition is easier for me, but that's just another free tool that you don't have to go to Mint
Yeah.
or something like that. It's just
Exactly.
right in your credit card already.
Yeah, and it
So-
sounds like you've been doing it for a while, so you know that system and you have comfort with how that system works for you.
It
right?
just felt easy.
Yeah,
it
and
just feels easy.
that's the key right there, is spending enough time with your own system to
Yeah.
develop one that feels comfortable for you.
Exactly.
Because if I tried to coach you to use my system, you'd be like, Kasey, this is
I tried it.
ridiculous.
I tried Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah,
And I
you're
was
like, this is ridiculous. I don't like this. So,
Yeah.
so I for sure don't dictate how it's done, but I just say, I encourage you to make that regular routine with yourself, that you spend time with your actual numbers, right? Yeah, Carly, did you
I
have a
was just
question?
gonna say, I use that tool on the credit card for my business because I do professional services, which is Google, Facebook.
Mhm.
And I spend my clients' money, like they give me the money, I spend the money, I track it in a spreadsheet. But I go in and then I pay the credit card to the penny because it's all in like escrow accounts. Then I'm like, I have to transfer this
Right.
money to the
Right.
penny. And I use that tool on the credit cards for the business
Yeah.
very easily for that.
Yeah.
But I would say because I use Kasey's system, like the old school way, at least at the start, is like so microscopic too, that you're like, oh, this is like, you just like, until you get it dialed, I feel like it's.
Well, there's the psychology of money, which you probably could spend 2 hours on, about if you're jotting down how much you're spending every time you spend on a credit card, you're gonna spend less.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah,
paying in cash
yeah,
versus using a card.
exactly, like paying in cash, yeah.
Absolutely. So those are all awesome points. And that is why this part and this tool is the most challenging, because everyone has a unique perspective on what works for them. And it takes a lot of time and sitting with it and massaging it and using it to come up with a system that you feel comfortable with. I tell my clients, this usually takes most people a good 3 months to dial in,
Mhm.
at least. Sometimes more if you have other life events that happen that, force you to relook at it, right? So this is the one, and this is the make or breaker right here. This is where the rubber meets the road. So if you're doing it, it's gonna help you tremendously. So we're gonna jump into number 3. I'm gonna just call this a savings plan, okay? But within your savings plan, there are 2 unique and distinctive pieces of your savings plan. I call it the short-term savings plan and the long-term savings plan. A short-term, in my view, are monies that you need to be able to get to immediately. You don't want to sock them away into investments or things that will lock it down. That's called liquidity. It needs to be liquid money. And there are plenty of great online banks right now that are paying upwards of like 3.5% for short-term savings accounts. I highly recommend you look into them, because if you're using a savings account from your bank, your local bank, you're probably making 0.001%. Historically, inflation rates are around the 3%. Right now, we're more than double that. So it's mission critical that all your money is working as hard as it can. So I want you to look into a high yield savings, online savings account for your short-term money. And your short-term money, remember how I said 20% of your income goes to savings? I want you to think about 10% at least going to long-term and 10% going to short-term. And the short-term money holds things like your emergency fund. Your emergency fund should be at least 3 months of your mandatory expenses. That's also why I had you do in your spending plan the mandatory, so you know what that number is, right? So it houses things like I call money buckets. And I have a money bucket for home repairs that I have to do. I have a money bucket for car repairs, for vacations, for holidays, for gifts, all those things that pop up during the year that if you don't have a little money bucket for it, it tends to go on the credit card, right? So the short-term savings plan is your number one tool for plugging away your emergency money and those little expenses or big expenses that pop up during the year that we haven't planned for. So think about that 10 and 10% split. If you're contributing to a 401k at work, or you're a business owner and you have a SEP or a solo 401k, that does count towards your 10%. So if you told me, Kasey, I'm putting away 3% of my income into my company 401k, and my company is matching that 3%, well, there's 6% that's already being done for your 10 goal, right? So I want you to look at that, and if you are contributing already to work, which I highly recommend, especially if your employer is throwing free money at the game, please do that and take advantage of that. So your short terms, again, savings plan holds your emergency money in your money buckets. Your long-term savings and your long-term money really needs to be invested, and it needs to be invested for the long term. We're talking about retirement, or maybe in 10 years you have a goal of taking a big vacation or starting a business or something of that nature. Anything that's 5 years in the future or longer needs to be invested. And so you can either utilize the investment people that are available to you at work, or there's plenty of online investment companies that are geared for people starting out. I like Fidelity, I like Schwab, I like Ellevest, but that really needs to be invested. And I see a lot with my clients, they might have a little bit of money socked away and they don't know what they're invested in that long-term savings. So you do need to look at that at least on an annual basis. So again, your savings plan incorporates short-term money and long-term money. Short-term money needs to be in that high yield savings account, and you're using it and paying, out of that for your money buckets. And then your long-term money is kind of like you're putting it over here, but you're investing it for the long term. This is a complicated one, I know. So does anyone have any questions that I can help with on this part?
I just think it'd be hard to work with couples who have different financial practices.
Yes, it is. And so that's all about, essentially doing what you do at work, right? Have a team meeting, right? Let's have a team meeting and see where we're at with all of this. But yes, that is a challenge for most of us, I would say. Okay, so tool number 4 is your debt portfolio. So you've already done a lot of the work for your debt portfolio because you've done your net worth statement already. So your debt portfolio really is just a piece of paper or an electronic, file, Word doc, whatever, that states who you owe money to, your creditors, right? Who do you owe money to? What is the balance of what you owe to them? What is the interest rate that you're paying? What is the term? How long will you have this loan? Is it you had a 5-year car loan and you have 2 years left? I want you to write down all the pieces and parts of that, your monthly payments. So again, the creditor that you owe money to, your interest rate, the balance, the monthly payment, and the term. And then I want you to put them in order of who is charging you the most interest. Do you have a credit card that's charging you 24%? That's probably going to be at the top of your list. Do you have a mortgage at 5%? That's probably going to be at the bottom of your list. So what this helps with is not only seeing, oh, wow, this is who I owe money to in great detail, a lot more detail than your net worth, but it tells you which piece of debt to tackle first. I always want you to tackle the highest interest rate first. This is called the avalanche method. You've probably heard the snowball method, which says pay off the smallest balance due first. Sure, psychologically that probably works, but monetarily and numbers again don't lie. It's best to pay off the most expensive debt first, okay? So this debt portfolio really tells you what to tackle first, like I said, and then it also helps you to analyze your bad debt versus your good debt. And my definition of bad debt is debt that is spent on things that don't increase in value over time. So for example, if you have credit card debt that paid for a vacation, it paid for clothing, it paid for going out to eat, it paid for, the hot water heater that broke. None of these things are things that are building assets for you. They're not increasing in value over time. So you spent that money, you financed that for something that's not giving you equity or asset growth. That's bad debt. Good debt is the flip of that. It's debt that you use to buy things that increase in value over time. These are things like your home. Where we live, home values, continue to go up and up and up. So if you spend on a mortgage, you're buying an asset that increases in value over time. If you have student loans that allowed you to go from, a minimum wage job to now you're a working professional, or, your education allowed you to get a promotion, your education allowed you to be financially upwardly mobile. Well, that's a good debt, because without it, you wouldn't have had that opportunity to earn more money, right? That's an increase. Student debt is one of those that can also be bad debt. If we spend it not wisely, and it's not on a career choice that really does help us to grow our income, then it can be a bad debt too. Another good debt is debt for business. Again, this could be a bad one too. If you spend a whole bunch of money on a business that doesn't take off, that could be considered bad debt. But if you take on debt to grow a business that increases in income annually, that's a good debt. So this whole debt portfolio piece gives you a visual representation of what you have that's bad versus good. And any questions on the debt portfolio piece?
So we do have a question that came in the chat.
Yes. So this is actually for your
Okay.
previous one.
Yeah.
But how do you account for college savings for kiddos, 529 plans? And what percentage of long-term savings would you recommend putting towards that?
Okay. This is one of my favorite topics. So 529 plans are an excellent tool to set up for your children for education. Is there a specific amount that you should be putting into your child's 529 plan? No, and here's why I want you to prioritize this. For myself and my clients, I advocate for taking care of yourself first. So if you are not in a financial position where you are getting to that 20% number, and you have emergency savings, and you have your long-term and your short-term fully funded, I want you to dedicate all your resources to getting that done first. Now, from there, if you have additional resources to be putting into a college savings account for your child, take a look at what it's gonna cost. I mean, right now, I'm looking at, for my kid to go to the U, you know, I probably have to have a good, very close to 100 grand for 4 years, right? So, and that's with housing and everything, right? Tuition, housing, room and board, all those things. So you really should take a look at that, and that's long-term money. Again, that's long-term money that needs to be invested. I think the rate of college tuition has gone up like triple fold of inflation over the years. So take a look at what you think is realistic for your child and then back it out from there, okay? If I'm gonna be making 6% in this portfolio conservatively, I need to put an X to get to that amount. But again, please, I advocate strongly for setting yourself up for success first, because no child wants to inherit a 70-year-old relative who's broke. That's the way I look at that. Anything else?
We do have one other question. So big kid expenses such as ski programs and camps throw off my budget all the time. Do you recommend these expenses come out of saving bucket instead of making it a line item in the budget spreadsheet with a good guess number?
Yes. So again, take a look at what you're spending annually for kids' sports, activities, camps, all of those things. And if it's not a monthly regular expense, like they're doing an aftercare program this much every month, if it's not a regular monthly expense, it does need to be a money bucket. And so you need to look at what you spend on an annual basis and make sure that you're putting that amount into your short-term savings plan so that when those expenses come up, you know from where to draw it, right?
So that's your high yield savings account.
That's your high yield savings account, exactly. So if you know you're spending, for example, $7 grand a year on camps, activities, sports, etc., divide that by 12 and make sure you're socking away that amount of money into your short-term savings every month, so that when you do get the bills, you can pull that out and there's no surprises and you don't have to finance it on a credit card.
And then when you, because some accounts, obviously like a 401k or things like that, you have a fee if you pull money out, but with a high yield savings, you can pull money out without a fee.
Exactly. It's not locked down money, it's liquid money. So they do limit how many transactions in the month that you can do. It's a federal regulation that you can't pull money out. I think it's more than 6 times a month. So you want to get yourself into a position where you're doing, I do 1 transaction a month, money in, money out, 1 lump sum, either direction, whatever it is that I need. So, but yeah, there's no penalty for more than that. Is there another question? Okay, so our last tool is the legacy file. And this is one that I know a lot of parents have kind of angst about, and they think about it, but we don't do it because it's a topic that none of us like. It's the piece and part that gets most often neglected. But as parents, it's vitally important that we have one, and it doesn't have to be complicated. You've probably heard people say, you know, you need a trust, or you need to go to an attorney and have all these legal documents drawn up, and it's going to cost you $3,000 to do it. There are ways to do it for free online. You just have to look up the documents and dial them in. The trickiest part, in my opinion, is getting to agreement with your partner or spouse and what you want to have happen. Should one of you pass or both of you pass, who's going to be the guardian of your children? So what the legacy file is, it's a file to help your loved ones should something horrible happen, right? And you need to have in there medical directives, which state, you know, in my inability to care for myself medically, who is going to make those decisions? If my spouse or my sister is not available, who's the second person, right? So it's a directive on who can handle your medical care. Financial is the same thing on financial side. If you're not capable of handling your own finances at some point, who's going to make those decisions for you. And if that person isn't available, who's the next in line? I do advocate that all of us should have a will. That just basically spells out how you want assets divided, and how you want your estate managed should you be gone. A trust is something that, for me personally, I didn't really need until I owned property in another state. Because then you're now dealing with two probate courts. You're dealing with a probate court in a different state versus Utah. So if you are an individual that owns assets out of one state, you might want to think about getting a trust. Otherwise, a will should be sufficient. But again, it depends on how complicated your life and your portfolio is, right? Get beneficiaries on all your accounts, every single one of them. If you don't know if you have beneficiaries on them, take the time as you do your net worth statement. You can see all your accounts and think about, do I know if I have a beneficiary listed on all of those accounts? What that does is that keeps that money or asset from going into probate so that your loved ones have immediate access to that money. So make sure you have beneficiaries on all accounts. You put your life insurance, these are all things that go into your legacy file, by the way. You put your life insurance policies in there. You give a password to your password holder account, or you list out all your passwords. When I worked at the bank, I helped a woman. Her husband had an account with a substantial amount of money in it, and she wasn't on the account, nor was she a beneficiary. So guess what? She didn't get access to that account until it went through probate, which took well over a year. I don't want that happening to anybody. So make sure that you have all those things in your legacy file. And then if you need anything witnessed or notarized, like you probably want your will witnessed and notarized, your medical directives, your financial POA. And if you look at those online, they'll tell you whether or not your state requires that they be witnessed or notarized. I personally keep a paper file in a safe, but then I also have a file of all of these documents on my computer that is spelled out. So that's a question I get a lot too, is should it be on the computer? Should it be a hard file? I do both. And those are the 5. So let's recap them. So the mastery of these 5 tools seriously will put you ahead of the game financially of most human beings on this planet. So if you can really dial in just these 5, you are setting yourself up for so much success, I'm telling you. So net worth statements, number 1, your monthly spending plan. Again, that's one that you're really gonna have to massage and work through. Your short and your long-term savings plan. Think about that 20 number, the 10 and the 10, the high yield, the investments, and then paying off your debt portfolio and getting that set up, and then doing your legacy file. That really, I mean, that gives you a huge solid foundation financially if you can get all 5 of these done. So, and then, you know, thanks for the opportunity. If you have any questions in addition to what we talked about today, this is how you get in touch with me. My Instagram handle's there, my Facebook. I do monthly events that are great. One's called Wine About Money. We go and we, you know, have a little appy and a beverage of choice and have a specific money topic once a month. So I do charge tickets for that. Just helps me pay the bill at the end of the thing. But then I do a free online Facebook Live monthly thing too. It's a good way to just kind of get some free coaching and to get to know me better and ask questions. But I'm very open, so call me. Happy to help.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, how are we on time?
Good. We have time for a few more questions. If anybody in the interwebs has any additional questions for for Kasey. I'd say what do you see being one of the most challenging financial either savings or like what do you find people come to you with the most that's kind of the most common challenging scenario?
Well, working together as a couple, for sure. Like, how do we get on the same page with our finances? That's tricky because you might come into a relationship where you divide all your income and, it's my money and your money, right? I advocate for combined and that gets you to the goal so much faster if you're both on the same page, right? So a lot of, what we talk about is how do we, if we're in a relationship, how do we work together to maximize that? That's a big one. I would say the two tools on here that are we work most with is the spending plan and the short-term savings plan. Those are the two things that when you have mastery of that, you flip the switch from just, being in your money to flipping the switch to building wealth. Those two things we work on a lot. All of us in society have bad debt. I mean, most of us have accumulated that, and especially the younger you are, it just happens. So how do we come out of that? How do we get out of it to where we're not paying the bank 24% and instead we're earning 24%, right? Mm-hmm. So I would say those are probably the 3 or 4 hottest topics that we really cover in my business. Mm-hmm. And they're the ones that really help people to thrive financially when they master them. So, yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
One of my kids is really coming of age with the concept of money,
yeah.
right? And so my next goal is to help instill and teach some of these same strategies to them, but I am falling flat in terms of like how to do that, what's reasonable in terms of savings, a percentage, or which could be great for like learning math and stuff like that. And I talked about like,
right,
okay, you earn, if you save this much, then I'll add to it, right? But I do have tools or recommendations because I'm just falling flat other than that.
So the earliest your children can get their own account and a debit card, do it. But don't do it before you've had the conversation on how to manage it, right? And so I go to the same principles. They're like mini slices, right? Like, oh, you have a babysitting job, or you have a dog walking job, or you get paid for doing chores around the house. That's your income.
Right.
So I want you to divide it into putting 20%, bless you, away and thinking about what your discretionary is. If you can get your kids into the habit at a young age of saying, I'm going to sock away 20% of my money, and that's just not a non-negotiable, I'm just going to do that. You are setting them up for so much success, right? And then once your kids like actually get a job, right, and they're W-2 an employee, teach them about setting up a Roth IRA. A really cool tool. I think it's I'll look it up on my computer, but it's like a government site, and trust me, it's actually easy to use, which is funny. But it's an amortization calculator, like basically showing you if I put in $10 a month and I earn 3%, and then you can do these kind of like, if you get to the point, I just did this with my 18-year-old, said if you can put $200 away a month, you're going to have $1 million by the time you're my age. And here's how. So like, there's tools out there to have those real like visual conversations with your kids. So yeah, I would say, get them an account, teach them how to put 20% away. Yeah. Teach them the difference between a bank account that pays nothing and a bank account that pays 3.5%. Teach them about an investment account and how when you invest in corporations or you invest in these things, it goes even higher. You can play with the percentages. And then of course, when they're 18, get them a credit card. My son just turned 18. We got him a credit card. It's his, it's not mine. It's not an authorized user, it's his. And I said, just put your gas money on here, pay it off every month.
Build your credit.
Get yourself into the cycle of use, pay, right? So, did that kind of give you a couple ideas to think about?
Yeah, I think it just depends on the child and what their motivation is, because my son,
Totally.
it's like toy central. Like, oh, I got 20 bucks for grandma, I gotta spend it all.
Yeah,
Okay, well.
yeah, but you know, having a little like visual demonstration
Yeah.
of like, as you mature and you become an adult, you're gonna want to think about money this way. You know, it's fine if you spend that $20 on a toy right now, but if you do this.
Yeah, you
You
get
know.
more. And he's motivated to earn money. He's
Yeah,
absolutely motivated.
Well, most of us are, but we are also motivated to spend it, right?
Yes.
So
True.
so it's teaching all of us, right,
Yeah.
to save first and then spend later.
Yeah.
That's the big piece
Yeah.
that we can help our kids with.
Mhm.
And how credit and credit cards specifically can be a helpful tool when used correctly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else?
We're good. You got a bunch of thank yous on the
Yes.
chat. Oh, and
Thank you
just
for coming.
one thing is that to everybody who's still on, we will follow up with a recording of this presentation as well as Kasey's information, and then any tools or references or anything that you want to list in that email for resources that we will
Yeah.
put those in there for people as well.
Yeah, can do. Trust me,
All
there's plenty of free resources,
Yeah.
tons of them. So utilize your free resources first.
Awesome. All right. Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Good night.
Bye, thank you.